Hello everyone, welcome to my channel SW Metro official channel. Sister Wives has always been a series filled with tension, tears, and tough choices, but few moments have shocked fans quite like the recent Bombshell where Meri stood up to Kody in a heated family feud, a confrontation that not only peeled back the layers of their fractured relationship but also revealed long-simmering resentments, power struggles, and the emotional unraveling of a plural marriage that once promised unity and faith-driven love. And to fully grasp the weight of this moment we must look at the history leading up to it, because Meri has always been a complex figure in the Sister Wives universe, the original wife, the one who legally tied herself to Kody before he shifted his legal marriage to Robin in order to adopt her children, and for years Meri has been portrayed as isolated, often sidelined, and repeatedly painted as both the loyal first wife and the scapegoat for many of Kody's frustrations, and yet this time was different. This feud marked a turning point where Meri, who had been silent, withdrawn, and seemingly resigned to her diminished role, finally found her voice and let loose in a way that shook the entire Brown family dynamic, because during the explosive argument, she challenged Kody's authority, his hypocrisy, and his inability to see his own role in the breakdown of not just their relationship but the entire plural marriage, and in doing so she resonated with fans who have long watched her swallow her pain, endure neglect, and quietly carry the burden of being an afterthought in Kody's hierarchy of affection. So when Meri stood up to him in this heated exchange, she wasn't just speaking for herself, she was symbolically speaking for years of silenced wives, neglected partners, and women who felt invisible within polygamy's patriarchal structure. And what made this particular feud so gripping is that it didn't come out of nowhere. It was the culmination of decades of emotional distance, mistrust, and wounds that had never been addressed, because Meri's infamous catfishing scandal years ago had already drawn a wedge between her and Kody, and though the world saw that as her attempt to seek love and validation outside of the marriage, Kody never forgave her, repeatedly bringing it up as proof that she betrayed him, even though he himself was openly prioritizing Robin and neglecting his other wives. So when Meri confronted him this time, she directly addressed the hypocrisy of being endlessly punished for her mistake, while Kody's failures as a husband and father were rarely acknowledged, and fans could see the rawness in her voice, the exhaustion in her body language, and the way she finally dropped the politeness that had defined her interactions for years, as she called out not only Kody's emotional absence but his favoritism, his double standards, and his manipulation of the narrative to make himself the victim of circumstances he largely created. And what made the feud even more intense was how other family members reacted, because while Christine has already broken away and rebuilt her life with David Woolley, and Janelle has been outspoken about her own frustrations with Kody, this confrontation forced everyone to revisit the roots of the dysfunction, reminding viewers that the cracks in the Brown family foundation were never just about Coyote Pass, finances, or parenting decisions, but about Kody's consistent inability to balance love, attention, and respect across multiple wives. And Meri's voice became a lightning rod for all of that pent-up resentment, a spotlight on wounds that had been festering, and as she continued to stand her ground, she reminded Kody that she was not weak, that she had endured too much to continue allowing herself to be gaslit, and for once Kody didn't have the upper hand in the argument, because his usual tactic of raising his voice, storming off, or twisting the narrative into how much of a victim he was didn't land the same way, because Meri refused to back down, refused to let him control the conversation, and her courage lit a fire among fans who have for years begged her to walk away, but instead of walking away silently, she finally gave Kody the verbal reckoning that many felt he deserved. And while this feud was painful, it was also liberating, because it signaled that Meri, once the quiet and sidelined wife, had stepped into her power, reclaiming her narrative in a family where she had been pushed to the margins. And this is why the feud became such a bombshell. It was more than just a marital spat, it was a symbolic explosion of decades of oppression, favoritism, emotional neglect, and unacknowledged pain, and in that moment the show's themes of faith, family, and plural love were turned on their head, exposing the reality that sometimes the bravest thing someone can do is stand up and say enough, and Meri's feud with Kody was her enough moment. The kind of confrontation that makes history in a long-running reality series. And as fans dissect every detail, from her tone to his reaction to the silence of those around them, it becomes clear that this was not just television drama but a cultural conversation about women's empowerment, accountability in relationships, and the courage to confront those who diminish you, and moving forward. This feud will likely be remembered as the moment Meri stopped being the quiet first wife and became the woman who finally demanded to be seen, heard, and respected. Whether or not Kody or the rest of the family could handle it, and that is why Sister Wives Bombshell, Meri stands up to Kody in heated family feud will be one of the defining chapters in the saga of the Browns, because it didn't just expose the cracks, it shattered the illusion that had kept them together for so long. Meri's confrontation, according to insiders and glimpses we've seen on the show, wasn't a quiet moment behind closed doors, but a full-scale family feud in which emotions boiled over and the years of feeling silenced, ignored, and disrespected finally exploded into a thunderous outpouring of honesty that cut right to the core of Kody's ego and authority, leaving not just him but also Robin, Janelle, and Christine, even though she has already walked away from the plural marriage, to deal with the aftermath of this shocking new reality, a reality where Meri is no longer the passive, sidelined first wife but instead a woman ready to reclaim her voice and demand accountability from a man who, for far too long, dictated the rules of engagement, controlled the narrative, and, in Meri's view, diminished her role within the family to little more than an afterthought. When we trace back how this bombshell feud erupted, it is impossible to ignore the layers of tension that have defined Meri and Kody's relationship since the infamous catfishing scandal, when Meri was left feeling unloved and lonely enough to seek companionship elsewhere, which Kody never forgave her for, using it as both a weapon and a shield whenever issues of loyalty, affection, or trust surfaced, and though Meri repeatedly tried to apologize, rebuild, and reconcile, Kody's rejection grew harsher, until his words on national television, that he no longer felt any romantic attraction to Meri, crushed her completely, yet somehow she still clung to the idea of family, perhaps out of loyalty to her faith, to the children, or simply to the dream she once had of plural marriage working out, but that dream has long since died, and now, during this heated feud, Meri finally let all of that bottled-up pain spill over in a fiery confrontation where she told Kody exactly what fans have been screaming at their screens for years, that he was hypocritical, manipulative, and unfair in the way he distributed his love and attention, particularly when it came to Robin, the wife who has long been perceived as his favorite, shielded from criticism while the others were left to fight for scraps of his time and affection. The bombshell nature of this feud doesn't just lie in Meri's words but in the fact that, for once, Kody didn't have the last word. Instead, Meri's passion and determination stunned him into silence, and for a man who thrives on control, being confronted so directly and forcefully by his first wife, the woman he often claimed was distant and unworthy of his pursuit, was an ego blow he could barely handle, and sources close to the family suggest that what makes this even more dramatic is how it played out in front of others, with tensions escalating so loudly that it was impossible for the family to ignore, forcing everyone to take sides or at least reflect on their own history of conflict with Kody. Janelle, for example, who has already had her share of heated arguments with Kody over finances and loyalty, reportedly supported Meri's right to speak her truth, while Robin, visibly emotional, was said to be in tears, begging for calm and insisting that things didn't need to escalate, though her pleas only fueled Meri's fury, as Meri accused Robin of enabling Kody's worst behavior and of never truly understanding what it felt like to be discarded and unloved in a marriage that was supposed to be built on equality. Christine, watching from the sidelines now that she has built a new life with David Woolley, couldn't help but see echoes of her own final battles with Kody in Meri's words, a validation that leaving him was the best decision she could have ever made. And while Christine didn't insert herself directly into this feud, the ripple effect of her departure still loomed large, because Kody's bitterness over losing her has bled into every relationship he still has, intensifying his paranoia, defensiveness, and obsession with controlling the narrative. What's so compelling about this family feud is that it isn't just about marital squabbles but about identity, legacy, and the collapse of a dream that once captivated America, because when Sister Wives first aired, it was billed as a love story between one man and four women, a family who defied convention and built a community of support, love, and shared faith. Yet what we are witnessing now is the dismantling of that dream in real time, with Meri's confrontation serving as both a climax and a catalyst for change, proving that even the wife who stayed the longest and endured the most humiliation has her breaking point, and when she finally reached it, she didn't just walk away quietly, she stood up, she spoke, and she made sure her voice echoed across the Brown family empire and beyond, straight into the hearts of fans who have long been waiting for this moment. And so the question remains, what happens next? Will this feud permanently sever Meri's ties to Kody, or will it push him into a rare moment of self-reflection, something he has avoided time and again by blaming his wives for the family's downfall instead of owning his role in the collapse? Will Robyn, once his fiercest defender, begin to see the cracks in the narrative she has worked so hard to maintain? Will Janelle find renewed courage in Meri's stand and push back even harder against Kody's attempts to control the family finances and property? And will Christine, watching from afar, feel vindicated that her decision to leave was not only right for her but also a warning sign of what was inevitable for everyone else? These questions hang heavy in the air as the feud reverberates through not just the Brown household but also the fandom, who are dissecting every word, every facial expression, and every implication, because this isn't just television drama, it's a window into a family in freefall, a cautionary tale about power, control, love, faith, and the human need to be seen, heard, and respected. And whether you love Meri, pity her, or criticize her for staying as long as she did, you cannot deny that in this bombshell moment, she finally stepped into her power and reminded everyone, including Kody, that she is not invisible, she is not silent, and she is not afraid to stand up, even if it means standing alone.